So I was in the bed, and one minute I was looking up and I saw the people in the room with me, and then the next minute I was just in a different place. I wasn't in the room anymore. I was in a large white room.
Welcome, wonderful souls, to Holy Healing Talk with your girl April, founder and CEO of Holy Healing Chronicles. This podcast is a part of our mission to create a safe space for people to express their emotions and heal their hearts. We have amazing things happening, so stay tuned. But in the meantime, join our email list at www.holyhealingchronicles.org. We hope you enjoy the Holy Healing Talk. Welcome, wonderful souls, to the Holy Healing Talk with me, April, your host. This platform is our gateway to a world of boundless joy, healing, and transformation. Hi, friend. How are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Okay, I'm doing well. I'm so glad that you joined me in this discussion because you were one of the people that God led me to actually have this discussion with. And he's connecting me with individual that's like-minded. Um, and he's bringing me out of my comfort zone. So I appreciate you being available for me to even consider doing this because being in front of a camera, having a whole discussion to which the whole world would see, it's uncomfortable, but I'm learning to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. So, Lee, how
Yes.
are you in this moment right now? Are you comfortable?
I'm feeling a lot better recently. I've been really hitting things hard and I've been on my health grind. Doing a lot better than before for sure. How are you?
Today was the day, but I'm here. I wanted to bring you on. First, I want to share like how God works and connect people with people. Um, I'm so glad that you welcomed me because so I struggle with being forced to do something. I'm so used to taking control and doing it when I want to do it, but God forced this whole situation right here. So, like, we met on TikTok and we were on a
Hmm.
live video. It was a whole ministry thing going on. It was church that
Mhm.
night. It was
It
so much
was.
yep, it was so much prophesizing over and pouring into other people. And that's what I love because you can pour so much into somebody, but you need somebody to pour into you too.
Mhm.
And that was all going on. And, we ended up like staying in contact, supporting each other. And then you send me a message and God said, ask him now. And I said, want to, God, but okay, I will. And I asked you, would you mind being a part of a podcast with me and just having a discussion on healing through physical trauma? Um, and I know physical trauma can be abused, but this is a different type of physical trauma because from us talking and having a discussion, you share some things with us. So with me, that said, wow, this is a different form of healing because you have to learn to accept that whole situation, like not being in a wheelchair or whatever it is, like just things just being different. So healing through trauma, physical trauma, we it's so many different ways to heal. I talked with someone earlier about addiction, abuse, mental, physically, emotionally abuse, healing through trauma bonding. Like it's so many ways people are healing right now in this time. Like I said, yeah, he's the one. So God led me to you. So share with me, like, when did you know that you were called to be something special in someone else's life? When did you know your calling?
I I guess shortly after my incident, I had a massive stroke, and I think typically your usual stroke that kills somebody is about this big, and mine was about this big. So after I survived, well, after I came back from that, I encountered a woman that was my CNA in the hospital, and I was there for 6 months. So she was really kind, but she had a lot of mental struggle at the time. She had a lot to sort of get past, and I right up to the point that I had the stroke, I was a counselor. So I've always been a counselor in my adult life, pretty much, and I sort of latched on right away to her needs, and I was trying to help her through her situation. And that was the first time that God was kind of telling me that, you have something that can help this person, that it actually was coming from God and not coming from maybe, my work or credentials or anything like that. It was just sort of like a person to person kind of situation.
Wow. So it's just amazing how God uses other, isn't it? How he uses
Mhm.
someone else to wake up your purpose. Because we will sit in our purpose and ignore it sometimes. But God,
Right.
this is what's so awesome. He doesn't give up on us. He'll send and he'll keep sending until your spirit is awakening to receive your purpose and begin the journey on it. So prior to your accident, like, did you feel like you feel now? Like, were you into God? Was you into Christianity? Did you know your purpose? Did you know what was it like prior to like this?
I never I never was a Christian before any of this happened, and I really, really did not agree with religion in general. I thought that there might have been some purpose for church or religion in the community, but I didn't think that it was right for me. And
Mm.
as a kid, I had a very strict father. I came from a divorced parents, and so my father was very strictly Pentecostal. And when I would visit him, he would force us to go to church, and it was sort of like go to church or be branded with a hot iron sort of situation. And nobody wants to do that when they're a kid, so I was pretty opposed. And then I went into the sciences. So for 5 years, about I was a biology researcher, and I got published in the biology world a few times. And I dealt in statistics and analyses and what I could see under the microscope and what I could grow in a lab. So I didn't have any sort of belief or faith in anything that I couldn't see, observe, or measure. So
Wow.
it was definitely not for me.
I thank God that you say that because I know like I've come across people that's atheists, that struggles with like even like listening to anything spiritual because they feel as though if you can't see it, it's not there. But I constantly remind, and I don't know if you heard me say I have friends that's atheists. And I say that because I still can. God can use me to infect them with the spirit of God and let them know who God is. So I continue to show my story. I continue to share my testimony and things that I've overcome. But that's just amazing. Like if you don't see it, you don't believe it. Like, and that's where faith comes in because, you know, this is my thing. Like you get on an airplane and you let someone that you don't even know fly you across the world, right? Um, just random things you just do. You go to the groceries, you go to restaurants, and you don't see the cook your food, but you trust that process and eat it, and it's good. So my
Right.
question is, why can't you trust God? Like He's doing things in our life every day. You don't have control over it. You think you're doing that? No, it's not you doing that. That's God
Yeah.
doing it. So it's just little scenarios like that that I sometimes use as an example. Like, yeah, you can go to a restaurant and trust the person that you don't even know to cook a whole meal for you, and you eat it and enjoy it, not knowing if they spit in it, if they dropped it on. You do it. So you can't trust God. Okay, I guess that's a good example. So, like, one thing you shared with me in our discussion that was so amazing because every everybody that's being brought back to God and us being spiritually aligned with God, like we're going to experience that, Him, like when He calls us home, when He takes us back, right? You had an experience that was amazing, actually. And in some people's eyes, they'll probably say, what? But it's amazing that you got to experience this moment during your physical trauma. So, like, what was that like? Can you like tell me, like
Yes.
when you started, when did it end? When you came back to, what did you say? Like, what was that like?
Sure. So I have here and there I have some time gaps in my head, some memory lapses from being unconscious. I was on life support a couple times and I lost my autonomic functions a couple times. So it was a good time. But from what I gather and from what I remember, what started it all was that I had a massive, massive stroke and I was just at home and I was in the restroom and I went to wash my hands and it felt like a hot iron hand coming over the back of my head. And it was just sort of gripping it. And whenever it gripped my skull, it just melted right through and it burned all the way through my brain is what it felt like. And I started to, I started to fall and I kind of tried to catch myself and I was just backing against every wall in the small bathroom. I was kind of like hitting one wall and staggering to the other side and hitting that wall
Um,
till eventually I fell and I couldn't get back up and I kept pushing up from the bathtub and not my left side was not following with me to help me get up. And I didn't really like I didn't for sure know what happened at first, but then it hit me that oh, I've had a stroke and I'm going to be in a nursing home or something. And I knew because I used to be a CNA for a long time taking care of stroke victims. So I was immediately terrified knowing that I probably never walk again, never do this, never do that. So I ended up in the hospital, but I was in the hospital for maybe before I actually died, I was in the hospital for maybe I think 2 weeks, about 2 weeks I was there. So at first I lost consciousness and my brain it swelled down into my brain stem and the hole's like this big and it forced the brain stem down back into my body. So I stopped breathing, blinking, all of that normal stuff, regulating all my body things that I needed to regulate. And then they took me to the hospital. So I survived that somehow. I don't really, know besides God how I could have survived that because it's not survivable and it doesn't happen that people survive it really, especially not the size of the stroke that I had. It was just like, I mean, in the scientific world, it's just not possible. But so I was sorry for getting off, but I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. They were trying to just keep me alive at that point. And at first, I remember them telling me or telling each other while I was in and out of it that I wouldn't make it through the night, that I wouldn't even make it through like maybe half an hour. And then usually after you have a stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke like what I had, it throws blood into the brain that shouldn't be there. And they usually will take a suction device and suck it out, evacuate it. And so they were like, we're not going to evacuate it because he's not going to survive anyway. So what's the point basically? And so here I am, in and out of consciousness, and I'm hearing them say this. And I'm like, well, that's great. Good for me. Now I got nothing to even hope for. So they left it in there, and it's still been in there 2 years later. But anyway, I'll go back. So I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks, and at about the 2 week mark, I came down with pneumonia because I aspirated on food. So they were trying to get me to eat, but after you have a stroke, you have difficulty swallowing. They call it dysphagia. So they put you on a certain type of diet with liquefied food and then drinks they're not really drinks anymore because they add cornstarch to them so that they're like pudding because they don't want you to choke. And so somebody fed me soup or like force fed me soup and I choked on it and I got pneumonia. And then after I got pneumonia, my health just kept declining even more. And at one point, I had a fever of 106. And then they read it again because they said, well, that can't even be possible, 106. And they reread it like 4 or 5 times and they found it was 109. And they were like, well, we don't know what to think now. Like, this is not possible, 106 or 109. just not not possible. So they were like, his brain's going to be fried up, like a fried egg and burnt. So they tried everything they could. They threw everything they could at me, and it failed, and I died anyway. So I was in the bed, and one minute I was looking up, and I saw the people in the room with me, and then the next minute I was just in a different place. I wasn't in the room anymore. I was in a large white room. It's very, very
Uh,
odd kind of experience.
okay, so I'm sorry, I just got chills, but go ahead. You was in this
Sure.
law.
Yeah, so I woke up sort of, I guess woke up, I guess. It was sort of more like a shift. I was in one room and then in the next second I was in a different room. And the room, it was a big white room. And then there was sort of like a wall over here where it met the wall in front of me. In the corner, there was a really faint light candlelight that came in. And it was very inviting, very warm. It was sort of like an orangish kind of glow. And it kind of flickered in like this, and it would get brighter and brighter. And as it flickered in, my whole head, I don't know how to explain it, but it seemed like somebody blew into one ear and everything that was in my head blew out the other side and it was gone. So I had no thoughts, no cognition, no memory, no connection to my old life or anything for a moment. And then the light began getting brighter and brighter until it went from sort of like a soft glow to more of a platinum light. And when it became so platinum I couldn't see anymore, I started hearing prayers. And it was really inviting. It was actually seductive. It was prayers from people that I didn't recognize their voice. And they were saying, "Bring him home. Bring him up here. God, please bring him to heaven. Bring him home." And so I really started kind of freaking out. My spirit knew exactly what was going on. My soul was really in awe in my body. If I had, any sort of way to see myself, my countenance would have been like, because it seemed like every hair on my body was standing on end like electricity. It was like that feeling of getting called to the principal's office, in the pit of your stomach and all the way up your body. So I couldn't think, but I knew, and my spirit told me we're dead. And after I felt that I was dead, I heard some prayers, and the light got really bright, brighter than I could really even see anymore. And then I heard prayers saying, "Bring him home." But the prayers were very distorted because they were all one sort of morphed voice, like the slow-mo voice from TV, like the
Yeah.
and it didn't sound really human, but it also sort of sounded familiar. And I was like, I think I know that voice. And then that voice is sort of divided into multiple voices, and they were my two, well, they were a few of my aunts, and they were praying for me. But the two that I remember hearing specifically come out of the crowd were two of my favorite aunts, and one of them said, well, and if they see this, they're all my favorite, but one of them said, "God, you send him back right now. He's a light in this world, and he has more to do down here, so send him back now." And she was very, very stern, and she was very firm about what she wanted. And then my other aunt, she's more meek, and she said, "God, your will be done, but please make something positive come out of this, please." And then after their prayers ended, everything was like a snap. The light disappeared, and I woke up instantly. And then after I woke up, I turned to my right, and there was a woman standing there, and she was in black scrubs, and she seemed like a nurse or maybe a nurse practitioner or something or a CNA. And I turned to her and I said, "Am I dead?" And she goes, "No, you're not dead, honey. You're not dead." So I was like, "Well, are you dead?" And she said, "No, we're not dead. We're okay." But I knew that somebody had to, like, either she was dead or I was dead because of what I just experienced. And then my mom, she's a nurse practitioner, so she had flown up from Florida to Seattle to come and take care of me and oversee my care because she's got quite a lot of experience with that kind of thing. So she came and she came in shortly after that, and they were laughing in the hall, telling her he thinks he's dead, and she's like kind of on edge because she's a diehard Christian and she has been her whole life. So she had been, unbeknownst to me, she had been doing the Jericho march around my bed, and she had been praying really intensely and contacting all of her prayer warriors in the family to pray for me. I mean, she had all kinds of things going on while I was asleep. So she came in and she asked me what they were talking about, and I told her, and she said, "Well, you died," and I said, "Yeah, I did." And I said, "I'm pretty sure that God sent me back." And she said, "You think that God sent you back?" And I said, "Yeah." And she was just blown away. She was like, "Well, if you think that God sent you back, then you met God for sure." So then I
Wow.
realized that I had, but I had nowhere to put that. I mean, you have different categories in your brains, like in your brain, like certain boxes, and you can pack things away into certain spots, but I had nowhere to put that. So I was like, well, how do I explore this? I don't even really know what to think. But I didn't really have to explore it or think about where to put it because it became everything. So the box that I should have put, got into, most people would, became my entire brain and my entire life, my healing and everything. So now I have to find places to put other things in because God takes up my whole mind at this point in my life. So
That
then
is,
I,
this is
so
amazing. This is amazing. I tell you, like, since I've transitioned and I've been saved, every day, like I'm consumed mentally with God, like his word, what he has me doing, who he's showing me I am, who he continues to show me he continues to show me who I'm becoming. But just in that testimony, just in that alone, I know that that's your journey. But I want to go a little bit back, right? You said that it was a situation with your brain that there's no way possible. Like you shouldn't even, well, based off of medical, you shouldn't be here because it
right,
was so detrimental. It was so much damage done. They couldn't figure it out.
right.
But this is where I say God is so amazing because he has the last say. But he has the last say. The doctors can come in and say today, it's nothing else we can do. Prepare, like keep them comfortable. But God said, so I want to tell you this story, right? To show you,
Hmm.
to confirm that I know God is real and how things may happen, things happen right on time based off of God. Some things may be delayed, but it's never denied when God is in the mix, right?
Right.
So um last year I transitioned to Texas. I'm from Chicago and I came from Wisconsin. I was in Wisconsin for almost 9 years. And so I came here with this hope I'm going to buy this big house. So I want to like clear this up. So initially, my daughter and I, we was going to buy the house together. But it ran into some things to where I was like, you know what? I don't even want to be a homeowner anymore because what God has me doing, I'm going to be traveling. I'm not going to, he just needs for me to bring a home here for my children and when I come to rest. So I just put the house in my daughter's name and I just co-signed on it because I don't want a home. I have a home, but the house of worship is where I want to be all the time, right?
Hmm.
So coming here, it was a struggle. I lived in an Airbnb for 2 months. No one, only my spiritual sisters to whom I call. They were available to me. They called and checked on me every day. I was struggling because I was so uncomfortable. The Airbnb wasn't like a home like setting, it was more like a party house. Excuse me. So I was supposed to move in my house on July 28th. And the 28th came, I came to do my walkthrough. Nope, still not. The house is ready, but now we're having problems with with the mortgage company for my daughter. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm putting up all this money. Like, what's going on? What's happening? Right. And I'm just exhausted. It was like a couple of days before August 16th. August 16th is when I ended up moving in. But we had to go sign on the house on a Friday night, late. And I had to drive from Houston to Katy, Texas. So that's like traffic an hour just to do the signing. The lady was like, um, I usually don't stay here this long, but I want to help you ladies. I'm gonna stay. Just come now. So we took that drive and all this traffic. And I'm just so like, God, what's happening? What's happening? My faith. It was my faith. I already knew. And I ended up getting in my house, right? But it seemed like long, like I wasn't gonna ever get to my house. Like this Airbnb, it was just, oh my God. So I surrendered that night. I'm God, I give it to you. I was waking up with anxiety, with the my tightness in my neck. Like it's like I already knew something bad was gonna happen that day. I ended up getting into the house. Fast forward, I get moving to my house. So I asked my best friend to send all of my mail from Wisconsin to me. And when I got the mail, this is August 16th. When I got the mail, it was letters that was written to me from the mortgage company in mid-July saying that I had been denied. My daughter had been denied for the loan. I had been denied as a co-signer of the loan.
Wow.
That they thanked us for considering them as a mortgage company, but they wanted to part ways. But in that, I never received those letters until after I was inside of the house. And
Wow.
I'm sitting on my bed and I'm reading a letter. I'm like, these letters said I was denied. But God said, no, I'm delaying it. I need your
Mm-hmm.
faith to be a little bit stronger and wait on me. You're trying to take control. That's why I was waking up with the tension in my shoulders. I couldn't relax. I think my blood pressure was through the roof because it didn't look like how I wanted it to look. But when I said, you know what, I can't anymore. God said, release everybody around you, but focus on me. I thought I was pleasing God by every day being on the phone with my friends talking about him, but no, he said, no, I don't want you to do any of that. I want you and me, just you and I. I still didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And God showed me at that moment. I said delayed, but not denied. I was sitting,
Amen.
I was sitting in the house reading the letters of the loan I was denied on. I was
For
in
the
the house.
house. Wow.
So I go to say, no, God has the final say in everything. Even when
Every
the doctor
time.
can say this, that, and the other, God has the final say. God sent you back because you have a ministry. That's a testimony. He sent you back to let people know that he is real. How do you know he's real? Because you experienced it firsthand.
Yes. And I called those aunts that they were praying for me whenever I died, and they confirmed every single word. So it's undeniable proof.
Wow. This is amazing. And I thank God for, like I said again, divine connections. So, like you went through that process, you came back in that moment that you say, because I know you said you wasn't into the religion, but when you came back and you started to get better, you changed your mind real quick. Then you had said, oh, wait a minute.
He got me. Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did
He
that look?
snatched me up. He said, "Come on back."
Come on back now. Look, you can't turn around. You
Mm-hmm.
can't go the other way. I done showed you something,
Mm-hmm.
so I need you to give your all to me. Surrender to me. It's me and you. I have an assignment for you. I have a purpose for you. And if I'm sending you back, you're gonna give me 1,000, not 100, 1,000% of all of you, and allow me to
Amen.
lead you to do the work that I need you to do. Wow, that's a
He
story.
did.
That's a story. That
Yeah.
story. So fast forward, you come out, you talk to everyone. When did you pick up the Bible?
That was a tricky part because I didn't really know where to start. But it was, I would say, well, whenever I was in the hospital, God kept sending people to take care of me, like my nursing staff. they all suspiciously had biblical names. It was very weird, and I was like, I get it, God, you're here, I get it. And but
Right.
I was picking up on it because even me, I wasn't really raised in church. Even I knew the names of the Bible. And there was an
Mhm.
Ethiopian nurse that took care of me, and his name was Eob. And I asked him what that meant, and he said that it meant Job. And I said, "Well, that's a biblical name. There's number one." Then I had a housekeeper named Anna, biblical. I mean, it's just every single person that took care of me, they all had biblical names, every single one of them. And so he kept sending people to take care of me. Some of the people that took care of me were really abusive, and the kind ones were biblically named people. And they would sort of give me these little breadcrumbs to Christianity. Like I had one nurse that I told her my story, and she didn't sort of like one of the other people. They told me that they thought that I had an anoxic brain event, and I said, "Well, yeah," because I have a degree in psychology. So I was like, "Yeah, I know. Like that's what a stroke is, bro. I get it. I could have had a hallucination, but where the faith comes in is that it could have been, but I believe that it's God." That somebody that had no faith before and no belief before, there's no other explanation for me. There's no other thing for me to do but have faith.
So
So
it
I
started.
told one of the nurses that I told her what happened, and she immediately agreed. She said, "Well, God brought you back for a reason." And she said, "We live by faith and not by sight," which I did not know was a Bible verse at the time, but now I know it is scripture. So she always would come in and sort of encourage me, and she talked to me about God, which is really a break of character for nurses because you can get I guess you could get fired for it or you could get reprimanded for it because it's not acceptable in this world to talk about God because we're not in heaven. We're down here on earth where other principalities reign supreme. So they want you to talk about, like, I don't know, like Beyonce and pop icons and social media and stuff. They don't want you talking about somebody that's good like God. And so, she would talk to me about God, and that sort of brought me along a bit. And it made me want to know some of the stuff she told me, like, is that a Bible thing? So I looked a couple things up on my phone, and I was interested in the Bible, but I didn't have the Bible app yet on my phone. And I didn't have a Bible with me because I was in a hospital. So I was in the hospital for about 6 months, and then probably 6 months after I was discharged, I started actually reading the Bible. My one of my aunts that prayed for me sent me a Bible that's it's sort of like a study Bible for men. And I like that it has little margins in it that has sort of explanations of things. And I like cliff notes to things, or I like sidebars to things, and I like to understand things more in depth. So it's sort of like the breakdown on the side, and I like that. So I started reading that, and my mom, the Christian, she said, "Well, let's read this together." She's like, "We'll just sit down and start reading." So she suggested John, I think based on a question that I had, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But we started reading in John. Immediately, I was blown away. I mean, it's so full of love. It was actually overwhelming. I didn't even get through the first little section that we read. I started crying. Maybe not openly crying, but I was tearing up, and I just got it. And I was like, wow, like he really is love. And there's so much in here that is so much love. And even this John, that he was so in love with him that he would have never tried to take his thunder because it starts right out with him saying, I know I got some gifts, but they're not from me, they're from God. And he's coming, but I'm just making the way for him. I'm just kind of clearing a path for him to come through, and I'm nobody.
Amen.
And
Amen.
it goes on, John 3:16. I mean, of course, that'll knock you out of the park too. I mean,
Oh, that's something that's in the history book
you can't
there
beat it.
of you.
That's
Look,
like you read that and then you're like, oh, I read the whole Bible. I'm done.
done. Right?
Yeah.
Can I
So
ask?
I started reading that and I started going to church. And when I first started going to church, I was wheelchair bound, but I
Okay.
started making small goals for myself. So my mom would drive me to church and then we would go together. She would wheel me up the little ramp into the church. And then there was a woman that would greet me at the door, Mary Ann. She's always really nice. And she would greet me at the door and she would kind of welcome, come in, come in, come in. There's a really good message today. Come in. And then she kind of like mothered me for a minute, so nice. And then That happened for a few months where my mom, she would wheelchair me up to the front of the church. I like sitting in the front because I like to take notes always. But I'm just that, I've always been that kind of student. So she reels me up to the front and I would sit in my wheelchair because on my left, I didn't mention, but I ended up with left side paralysis, and my left side I couldn't feel my entire leg, my butt or anything over there, so I couldn't really tell if I was on the chair or not the whole way. So I could just really easily just fall off the chair and take the whole thing with me to the floor. So I just stayed in my wheelchair where I was safe at the time. And I started absorbing the word, but I wasn't really interacting. I wasn't really, like praising or singing with anybody, and all the words were foreign to me for all the songs. And then over time, I started learning the songs and I started looking forward to them instead of being annoyed by them. Because at first, it was just sort of like, oh, perform. I don't even know any of these words. I can't perform for anybody, like it's not, this thing is not for me. It's too jolly. It's too, too everything for me. I just wanted to kind of just be there and hear. But then it became sort of like they were putting on a concert for me and I started feeling bad. So I started setting goals like that I'm going to try to, try to will myself up the aisle to the front on my own. And then it got to the point where eventually I started walking with a cane, and then I wanted to walk throughout the church with my cane by myself with nobody around. And then, then I eventually stopped using my cane too. So then I wanted to get up to my seat without the cane. Then I wanted to be able to get from my seat to the bathroom without the cane and then leave because my energy reserve was so low. I didn't really have the energy to do it or the muscle because I lost 60 pounds in the hospital from starvation. And I was really thriving in I mean, I was really failing to thrive in the hospital. So nothing was really going my way. So whenever I came down here to my parents to Florida, and I started going to church, I had really no energy reserve and no strength, and I had full blown paralysis on my left side. Now I've recovered quite a bit from that, but it's because I was setting those goals. So I would try to get from one place to another on my own, and then at one point I was like, I want to try to walk to the cross so that I can get prayer. And I went, and somebody stopped, and they came to me. They ended up both being really good friends of mine, but I didn't know them at the time, and they prayed for me. And they could see what was going on, even though they didn't really know my story. So they prayed for my strength, and it's been coming back. So now it's gotten to the point, it's been 2 years since my stroke, and it's been about a year and a half at this church, I believe. And now all those small little goals that I've set, now I drive to I get up myself, I dress myself with one arm, with one leg, and I drive myself to the church and I walk to the front by myself. I walk through the park, across the parking lot, into the church, open the door for myself, and I greet at the church as well. On some Sundays, like one Sunday a month, I greet and I open the door for others that used to open the door for me. And I get to my seat by myself and I sit in a regular seat like a person, like I'm alive and I'm a human again, which is really nice. And all those goals have paid off because it went from being able to get to church by myself, and now I've expanded my area over time, and I drive everything that I need. I pretty much can do myself now. And it's been a lot of it because I wanted to get up and praise in church with everybody else and to feel like I was alive because God gave me another life for a reason. And I'm supposed to experience it while I'm here. And I'm supposed to give it to him whenever it's time to go. So he wants me to enjoy it so that it's worth it. And all of that has really helped me to regain all of my strength and my abilities. And I also I need to mention too that so the church has really been my lifeline, and now I lead in the children's ministry sometimes, and I volunteer at the front door sometimes, helping people in. And I also lead a study group. I co-lead a study group with my friend Casey, who's also a member of the church, and I'm involved in another study group there as well, led by the woman that used to help me through the front door, Marianne, a very, very close friend and mentor now. She leads the group that I go to, and I'm not really the age range that they usually invite, but she said, "You're coming to the group." So I decided I would go. And it's just been the people there have been such a regeneration for me, and God has been such a regeneration for me as well.
Amen. Can I just ask? I know that some people may be wondering, do you mind sharing the age to which you had the stroke?
Sure, I was 31 and I'm 33 now.
Wow. But God, right?
But
But
God, every time.
look, you know what? You didn't have to fight because God already had favor over your life.
Amen.
You didn't have to fight. You had people praying for you that you didn't even know.
True.
Some of those people that walked past your hospital room door that didn't know you, but they saw you, it was people praying for you through this. Not because it's just the right thing to do, not only, but because God knew exactly what he was doing. This
Amen.
this is an amazing story. Um, I'm sure whoever watched this discussion between you and I, someone is going to be able to relate. Someone is going to be able to say, wow, like I can do it too. In the healing transformation process, like the goal is to never give up on God,
Right.
is to give it all to God. The goal is to have faith, because when you have faith and you've surrendered and given it all to God, he has favor over your life. That's the wonderful thing about him. Like, no matter how many times we make mistakes or how many times he strip us down to nothing, he will always restore us. But
Amen.
when he restores us, we're never going to look like what we've been through. We're never going to look like what we endured prior to. We're going to look like the overcomers that we are. And I can honestly say, Lee, you are an overcomer. I'm
Thank
trying
you.
to hold back the tears because I'm about to be 46 years old, but I've been networking and collabing and connecting with people my age, older than me, younger than me, and I know that it's for a purpose. See, God is telling me it doesn't matter the age, it doesn't matter what we look like, it doesn't matter what we've been through. The whole purpose is to bring as many people back to him, because no one is to be left behind. So I'm going to ask you this, my friend, Mr. Lee. I know you got a book.
Anything.
I know you have a book coming out. You got to have a book.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
I'm writing on it now.
And I'm going to say, if anybody watching this who really want to sit down and help with the publishing and the editing and all this, I'm going to leave your social media information at
Please.
the bottom of this, so that they can connect with you. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of responses, or on like, how can we help? If you want to donate to Mr. Lee, you'll be able to have this information below. But I'm just going to say, never give up on life, even when
Mm-mm.
it's tough, even when you don't even understand it. Even if you just living in the world and you have this thought like it ain't no God, if you don't believe it's a God after hearing this story, then we gonna come and lay hands and pray over you and bring you to church, because it is a God. We know it. He,
Yes.
and oh my God, like I can praise him all day. I can sit and have a discussion about what God has done for me. And this overcoming it looks wonderful on you, friend. It looks
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank
Can't
you.
wait about you're doing a ministry, right?
Yes,
You're gonna do a
I
ministry.
do.
You're gonna do a book. It's already,
Yes.
we declare and we decree that it's already done. You're
In
doing a book.
Jesus' name.
You're doing a ministry. You're going to continue to counsel. This is going to
Yes.
be bigger than ever. But in the meantime, if anyone wants to donate to Mr. Lee and his organization that he's putting together, or to the book funding, or just to him, But what's the email where people can get a hold of you?
It's hope of a future at outlook.com. And it's just all one word. It stems from Jeremiah 29:11, my favorite verse. And I'm on most social media as Hope of a Future or A Hope of a Future, depending
Okay.
on where. And we'll have those as well.
Well, I'm gonna say this. You and I are in collab. We in communication a lot, but I'm gonna say
Mhm.
I don't think this is gonna be the last discussion you and I have.
Mm-mm.
So I thank you for bringing
Thank
to
you.
life healing through physical trauma and showing people that God is real and that you've had your own experiences, but of course you have to experience Him for yourself. I
Right.
want to thank all of you all, if you're watching, thank you for supporting. Of course, this is new to me. This is not my work. This is God's work. I'm just being obedient and I'm doing it. If you all would please subscribe, hit the notification bell. We have more guests, more healing and transformation stories coming, restoration story. We have a lot more. I don't think I've had these many guests reach out to me and say, we want to do it with you. We want to do it with you. So every week I'm going to drop two episodes or series or whatever you call it. So stay tuned. I just really want to say thank you, Mr. Lee, for coming, sharing your story. And know you will hear more from him. We will hear more from you, right?
I'll still be here, sticking around
Yep.
for a while.
From him.
Thanks for
And
having me on.
thank you for coming. I am your girl, April. This is the Holy Healing Talk. We welcome you to come join us. If you can, visit our website at www.holyhealingchronicles.org. And if you all can, please get my book, Healing the Holy Heart. You can find that on my website as well. Read it. It's a story of overcoming and showing how God was relevant in my life and how important He is and how He still is to this moment, every minute, every second, every hour. I am signing off. Love you all. Stay jolly, stay happy, but stay safe.